Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
In Moments General Hospital recap, Jocelyn switches out on Sunny and Carly, Portia finds peace with Stella over Jordan, Rick's new job for Sunny irritates Diane, Rick makes his intentions clear to Elizabeth, and Emma tells off Brennan and Cullum. At the sanitarium, Stella told Portia that she demanded to get over her resentment for Jordan. Portia admitted that she knew the only people responsible for the demise of her marriage were the two people in it, and it was her and Curtis's choice to separate and be with other people. Stella told her, for the sake of her baby and her relationship with Isaiah, to move on and let go. Portia agreed, and they hugged. Latterly, Portia told Isaiah that was where she was at with everything, and they hugged as well. Meanwhile, Jordan went home and told Curtis about the gestation dread, and that she'd taken a test and it was negative. She told him all about how Portia figured it out and how they had words. Still, Jordan also congratulated Portia for who she was and said that she'd make a good mama to their baby. At the Port Charles Grill, Rick told Alexis that abducting him actually saved his life. Elizabeth arrived as Alexis was leaving. She didn't feel too impressed when she joined Rick at the table. He explained that he'd asked Alexis to start fresh as musketeers. Rick told Elizabeth that everything he was doing was for her. He was working with Sunny so that he could put down roots in Port Charles and give their relationship an honest pass. Sunny talked to Diane and explained to her that he wanted to give his family a chance to redeem himself by doing some work for him. Diane was none too pleased and took it like she was being fired. Diane went to meet with Alexis and asked if she knew what Sunny was over to. Alexis admitted he'd mentioned it, but she had told him to talk to Diane. Alexis told Diane to look at it as a break from the headache that came with representing Sunny, which made her feel mildly better, but she was still miffed. She said at least he'd have to inescapably grovel one day to her to clean up Rick's messes. At the Brown Dog, Jocelyn was going to meet up with Trina, Kai, Emma, and Gio at the Brown Dog, but Cullum and Brennan arrived, so she made an reason to leave right down. When she walked Jocelyn out, Trina was surprised when Cullum conceded her. Jocelyn claimed he was just someone she kept hitting into. She covered by saying she was actually leaving because Brennan was there. Trina advised that, as someone who knew, the time spent not talking to her mama was wasted time. Trina suggested Jocelyn make up with Carly rather than being frenetic at her. Meanwhile, Brennan asked Emma about Anna, and she got protective on her grandmother's behalf. Gio thanked him for asking and said they'd let him know if they had an update. Still, Emma marched over to Brennan and told him straight over to leave Anna alone. The WSB has done nothing but destroy her life, she added. Emma told Gio she wished she could have just one night out to forget everything. Meanwhile, Brennan told Cullum that he was still hazy on what happened to Anna and asked for details. Cullum said commodity happened that made her launch fixating on Faison, but he didn't know what. Cullum told Brennan that he misdoubted Anna would ever come back, and it was sad when a good agent breaks. Carly's callers. Carly came home to find Valentine staying for her. He wanted to know if sleeping together was the morning or commodity, or the end. Carly told him that she didn't lament it, and that made him happy. He went back upstairs, and also Sunny dropped by. Carly told Sunny each about her fight with Jocelyn and suggested that he keep his distance for a while so as not to provoke Jocelyn, as she's got some undetermined passions about him. Sunny didn't have a problem with that. But Jocelyn was the bone. Who had a problem with it, because she could see them talking through the window and knew her mama was discovering her secrets to Sunny. She burst in and let them both have a cure of her station. Sunny told her that he knew she might have a problem with him, but wanted to help figure it all out with her. Jocelyn made him a deal: do the right thing by Donna and your surviving children and leave the country. Jocelyn sniggered, offering to shoot him a card. Sunny was taken suddenly, and Carly told her to stop. That made Jocelyn snap at her mama that she was defending Sunny again. As she stomped back out, Jocelyn advised her mama that she wasn't holding on to her once miscalculations, it was her choices now that were disturbing her. Sunny goggled after Jocelyn as she walked out, also turned to Carly for answers. In today's sprawling and emotionally charged General Hospital recap, the episode unfolds like a storm of shifting loyalties, buried resentment, fragile reconciliation, and explosive confrontations that push nearly every character to the edge of their emotional limits. From quiet hospital conversations that slowly heal old wounds, to heated public confrontations and deeply personal betrayals at home, the day is marked by a steady build of tension that threatens to erupt at any moment. What begins with attempts at peace and understanding quickly transforms into anger, suspicion, and painful truths that cannot be ignored. At the hospital, Stella takes on the role of a steadying force for Portia, urging her to release the emotional burden she has been carrying regarding Jordan. Stella speaks with calm authority, reminding Portia that holding on to resentment will only continue to weigh her down and prevent her from moving forward. She encourages her to accept the reality that the end of her marriage to Curtis was not caused by one single person, but rather the choices made by both partners over time. Portia listens, slowly coming to terms with the idea that blame cannot fix what has already fractured. In a moment of emotional honesty, Portia admits that she understands now that both she and Curtis played roles in the breakdown of their relationship. Their separation, she acknowledges, was the result of mutual decisions and shifting paths rather than a singular act of betrayal. Stella's guidance helps her reach a place of reluctant acceptance, encouraging her to focus instead on the future rather than the pain of the past. Stella gently reminds Portia that she is expecting a child and that the emotional environment she builds now will shape both her own well-being and her future relationships. She advises her to release lingering bitterness toward Jordan so she can step into motherhood with clarity and peace. Portia, visibly moved by the conversation, agrees to try to let go. The two women share a heartfelt embrace that symbolizes emotional release and healing. Later, Portia carries that sense of resolution into a conversation with Isaiah. She tells him that she is trying to move forward, leaving behind the resentment and conflict that has weighed heavily on her. Isaiah responds with understanding, and the two share a tender moment of connection, embracing as they reaffirm their bond and mutual support. Meanwhile, Jordan returns home carrying her own emotional revelations. She tells Curtis about a recent pregnancy scare, explaining that she had taken a test that ultimately came back negative. The news brings relief but also reflection. Jordan recounts her recent encounter with Portia, including the tension-filled exchange they shared and the words that were spoken in anger and vulnerability. Despite everything, Jordan surprises Curtis by speaking with unexpected grace about Portia. She acknowledges Portia's strengths and even expresses the belief that Portia would make a capable and loving mother. This moment of acknowledgement reveals a softer side of Jordan, one that recognizes complexity rather than dwelling solely in conflict. At the Port Charles Grill, another web of emotional and strategic tension unfolds. Rick meets with Alexis and reflects on his recent ordeal, stating that being kidnapped, despite its danger, ultimately led him to a new perspective on his life. He speaks with unusual clarity about wanting a fresh start and repairing fractured relationships. Elizabeth arrives shortly after Alexis departs, and the atmosphere immediately shifts. There is a visible hesitation in her demeanor as she sits with Rick, uncertain of his intentions. Rick explains that he has already spoken with Alexis and expressed a desire to begin again, not as adversaries but as friends. His tone is earnest, suggesting that he is attempting to rebuild trust from the ground up. However, Rick's deeper motivation quickly surfaces. He tells Elizabeth that everything he is doing now is ultimately for her. He claims that his decision to work with Sunny is part of a broader plan to establish stability in Port Charles, a foundation that would allow him to genuinely pursue a future with her. His words are carefully chosen, blending sincerity with emotional persuasion, as he attempts to convince Elizabeth that his intentions are rooted in love and commitment. At the same time, Sunny is engaged in a separate conversation with Diane, explaining that he has decided to give Rick an opportunity to prove himself. He believes Rick deserves a chance at redemption and has assigned him work in hopes of reintegrating him into more constructive efforts. Diane, however, reacts with immediate skepticism and frustration. She interprets Sunny's decision less as trust and more as a burden being shifted onto her professional shoulders. Feeling blindsided, Diane later meets with Alexis to express her concerns. She questions whether Sunny is fully aware of the complications he may be creating by involving Rick in his operations. Alexis acknowledges that Sunny had mentioned his plans but insists that she had encouraged him to communicate directly with Diane. To soften the situation, Alexis suggests that Diane reframe the situation as a temporary reprieve from the constant legal chaos that comes with representing Sunny. While Diane reluctantly concedes a slight easing of tension, she remains unconvinced and somewhat irritated. She predicts that Rick will inevitably create complications that she will eventually be forced to clean up, reinforcing her distrust of the arrangement. At the Brown Dog, the younger generation finds itself caught in an atmosphere of social tension and uncomfortable encounters. Jocelyn arrives intending to meet friends, including Trina, Kai, Emma, and Gio, but her plans are disrupted when she notices the unexpected presence of Cullum and Brennan. Immediately sensing potential complications, she quickly devises an excuse to leave. As she exits, Trina notices Cullum's recognition of Jocelyn and becomes curious. Jocelyn downplays the interaction, dismissing Cullum as someone she keeps randomly encountering rather than someone of significance. She also uses Brennan's presence as part of her reason for leaving, attempting to avoid further questions. Trina, ever perceptive, advises Jocelyn not to waste time staying distant from her mother. She encourages her to reconcile with Carly, suggesting that prolonged silence only deepens emotional wounds rather than resolving them. Her words reflect concern and a desire for Jocelyn to find emotional stability. Inside the venue, Brennan turns his attention to Emma and asks about Anna. The question immediately triggers a defensive response, as Emma bristles at any perceived criticism or intrusion into her grandmother's situation. Gio intervenes calmly, thanking Brennan for his concern but making it clear that they will provide updates when appropriate. Emma, however, cannot contain her frustration. She confronts Brennan directly, telling him to stay out of Anna's life entirely. She accuses the WSB of causing nothing but pain and disruption, blaming the organization for damaging her grandmother's well-being. Her anger is raw and unfiltered, reflecting deep emotional loyalty and fear. Overwhelmed, Emma later confides to Gio that she just wants one night free from worry and pressure, a brief escape from the constant emotional strain surrounding Anna's situation. Meanwhile, Brennan continues his quiet interrogation of Cullum, pressing for more information about Anna's condition. Cullum explains that something significant appears to have triggered Anna's fixation on Faison, though he admits he does not fully understand the cause. He expresses doubt that Anna will return to her previous state, suggesting that her psychological stability has been deeply affected. His tone carries a sense of resignation, describing it as tragic when even highly trained agents begin to unravel.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. It really supports the channel. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss any of our upcoming videos, tips and exciting updates.